Hey guys, welcome back to my video. Anyways, now before I actually start working on the entirety of the Microbots and Magic miniseries myself, I should actually decide to give maybe a few fun facts about the universe it's set in. So yeah, here are three short stories that take place in the Microbots and Magic universe. And yes, you just heard that. There's three short stories before the actual. So about the organization. Now, the organization that we already established, the main character use a medical microbot, works for is has a not so good reputation. Basically, once again, given their refusal to share the amount of advanced science and technologies they have out of spite, due to the fact that at some point they were rejected by the scientific community, has led to many calling them selfish and that stuff in the in the respective mini series universe. So there's a story number one. In 2025, there was at some point this magician guy who had unfortunately had outdated equipment. Unfortunately, that would mean he wouldn't be able to provide for his family, whom he loves so much. Thing is, due to the rising amount of magicians are much better, kids' parents were just outright telling him to just quack off every time him asked if they asked if he could how do you say this, perform in a birthday party or an occasion. Thing is, the magician was not so happy about this. He eventually joined the organization at some point but kept it a secret, and eventually started doing research into the idea of turning lead into gold. He did some science and he found out that through the technology that's already being possessed by the organization, they could turn lead into gold theoretically, and the organization supported this. So yeah, he was able to do that. He started a metalworking industry where he produced this kind of stuff and provided it to computer companies and whatnot. Thing is, the, when people thought that they were quote unquote mines, in reality, they were actually laboratories containing reactors powering neutron beams that would basically scramble up the atomic structure of the lead, turning it into gold. And they actually featured this in an advertisement, but everyone thought it was just funny advertisement and propaganda. In reality, it was not. At some point, they were discovered, and a few lawsuits were made involving like the use of the technology for conversion of lead into gold, as well as moral dilemmas and stuff. But yeah, ever since that day though, every time some people noticed a magician would slowly start to have less gigs every week now, they would willingly choose low quality magicians that were slowly losing reputation over high quality magicians that were new, in fear that they might accidentally cause them to join the organization. Story number two. Sometime in 2024, the current year, or at least in the Microbots and Magic's universe, current era, 2024, there was at some point this 13-year-old kid. Now you see, he had awesome leadership skills and knowledge in science and technology. Problem is, every time he tried doing that, he kept getting mocked at some point. Oh, and by the way, story 1 and 2 take place somewhere in Manila. Actually, story 1 takes place somewhere in Manila, but story 2 takes place somewhere in Mindanao. Both are in the Philippines. Now, now you see, The kid almost basically tired of this. However, at some point he ran into a organization worker who then like heard his whole story. Long story short, this was going to be the beginning of some really bizarre crap. So yeah, first the kid would like enter the organization buildings like after school and just talk with the workers there. But slowly but surely, him along with other pre-teens or early teens like him, 8th graders, 7th graders, 9th graders, were all fans of the organization. He slowly started to like form some kind of like power dynamic over them. He like started to rise to power at some point. Also, the kid was not actually in question. Wasn't actually a kid. They were actually like more like a teenager. They were somewhere around 15 or 16 at the time. Thing is, at some point, rumors have been starting to fly that one of the people in charge, one of like the people in charge, actually had like a crush on this teenager, and it was a female. So no, there's no gay. I hate gay. Okay, she was actually like uh, a young adult actually. However, everyone ignored it because this girl basically had a crush on everyone. If they were to ask her, people who were with her in her high school days, they would know very well. However, the teenager decided to exploit this just so he could have a higher rise to power within the organization. Eventually, given the organization was constantly advancing technology, he employed the mass production of a type of like gun, more specifically rifles and pistols that were basically classified as cryogenic weapons due to them being able to fire out bullets made of ice. They'd fill up some water and some like gelatin along with other chemicals that would cause a chemical pro chemical how do you say this, reaction that would result in temperature being quickly drawn from the water, making it basically cold and icy. It was a non-fatal weapon. However, it was enough to be able to like to punch like a protester unconscious. Basically, the equivalent of a like a 30 pellet airsoft shotgun, and those things are painful. I tell you. Oh, remember the organization has a bad rep. So, however, they still running though. So there are like constantly some people who try to break in, so just so they can like take their technology, but then they end up getting shot by these ice things. At some point, however, some people decide to like send a group of drones, more specifically drones that had like around this time period they had modified drones so like contain mechanical arms and stuff. You see, in this universe, due to like the existence of the organization, people had basically realized the importance of technology and science, something that we take for granted in our timeline very much. So basically, this has led to a type of tech drive. Basically, in other words, the universe Microbots and Magic takes place in is like the same amount of like technology as like today. However, there's an organization with slightly more advanced technology, and the rest of the world, on the other hand, has like the same technology, but they're just pushing it to its limits. Now, long story short, this idea was like to use these drones just like storm, like just basically storm like the insides of buildings as a type of saying "f you" to them. So this teenager eventually like rallied up a bunch of like preteens who are basically around the same age as him, who are also fans of the organization. There are fans and haters of the organization, you see. And they just proceed to like form a line, and then they just waited for the drones to come and just shot them all down with those ice bullets. Also, these ice rifles and stuff are like more comparable to a musket, given that they had to be reloaded every time they shot due to the fact that the gelatin and the ice material would simply get stuck if they were to try to use some form of magazine, and that wouldn't work very well because you have a risk of exploding. No, a non-lethal explosion though. Still though, it lowers. Even though something will be shot out, if they try to do that, it lowers accuracy so bad. It's basically useless at this point. So yeah, tons of drones get struck down, and then con man is hired to like take responsibility for everything and the organization pays for all the drones that got destroyed. Oh, and another thing is that remember about the teenager like exploited some young adult that was like in the organization was like working there who simply had a crush on him. Well, he did not just like exploit her. He pretty much it isn't okay. I'm the one who wrote this for myself, and I can confirm that he did love her to some extent. In his own way, he pretty much loved her very nicely. So at some point, more protesters came in, and at some point, the government had to like take control of everything, and they decided that they were going to have to like force the organization to give up their technologies and like invent some new law that they could do this. Basically, it was less like a newly invented law and more like just legal loopholes which they used. So the organization did even more legal loopholes so they could avoid that, but in the process lowered activity in the area. In other words, the teenagers' power had simply just fla- fluntered. So they planned a lawsuit plot, which was led by none other than a female worker who simply had a crush on this teenager. What am I even saying? So to wrap it all up, they ended up filing a lawsuit against this over privacy manners, and then the organization quickly sprung back to life in the area. Everyone was mad about this, yeah, but the teenager quickly rose back up to power. Was very thankful to the female worker, and he basically decided to make a vow to her in exchange. At some point, however, a group of rioters proceeded to destroy the facility, the organization facilities, and they were successful